Okay, well, I think that's 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us today. There are so many things you could go and see, and I'm really delighted that you come see this one because I'm hoping that you will be inspired not by me, but by this great profession that we are part of, and by the phenomenal difference that this profession can make, and the commercial advantage that that will also give to us. When we pick up a newspaper, when we look anywhere, we are surrounded by bad news, aren't we? We're surrounded by disaster and doom and gloom. But I want you, if you would, just to imagine for a minute a different world. Imagine a world where one business at a time, one decision at a time, one economic unit at a time, things get better and better and better, and little by little we live in a world of genuine prosperity. Imagine a world where one child at a time, one hungry mouth at a time, one education at a time, people in need are lifted up and have brighter, better futures. Imagine a world where young people, instead of as of a few summers ago, were rioting on the streets and looking like the fabric of our society was being ripped apart. Imagine a world where young people see a bright future ahead of them, where their careers look exciting. Imagine a world where families, one family at a time, feel whole and are healthy and are happy. Imagine those things. Now that's how I asked delegates back at Accountex in 2012 to imagine an alternative world when I launched Accountants Change the World, which is a not-for-profit movement. And what I've wanted to do since then, since opening with that kind of introduction 4 years ago, was look at the evidence for the first time ever as to what it is accountants are actually doing, the difference that we are actually making. Not my vision. My vision was the world I just got you to imagine. But what's really interesting is, well, how does the reality stack up to that? And so I led an 18-month research project. Over 100,000 firms of accountants from across the world were eligible. There was a £10,000 cash prize, which was actually won by Lewis Ballard, a firm in Cardiff in South Wales. But there was a £10,000 cash prize to encourage accountants to share their experiences with the research team as to how they were making a difference. And then back on the 27th of April, so just a couple of days ago, the book that was the end result of all of that, The World's Most Inspiring Accountants, was published. And it's the insights from that book, from that research project, how the vision that I painted, I got you to imagine, stacks up with the reality in the world that I thought we would look at together today. There were 57 firms that ultimately made it into the book. There are 62 case studies in the book, 62 detailed stories of what accountants are doing, the difference it's making, both to the world, to their clients, to their communities, to their families, and to their bank accounts, to their profitability, to their success as practitioners. And as we go through this stuff, I would imagine one of the excuses that we'll start telling ourselves in order to say, oh, but we don't have to do that, that doesn't apply to us, is that those firms are bigger than mine. Well, actually, what's really interesting is 71% of the firms in the book have either one or two partners and less than 10 people in their team. These are not big firm stories. These are stories, this is evidence about what the rank and file of the accounting profession is doing, the profound impact we are making, and how that is transforming lives, yes, for sure, practices and fortunes too. So I'm going to follow the structure of the book in many senses. We're going to look at the impact, the unbelievable impact that we as accountants can have. Then we're going to drill down into, okay, so as well as the fact that it's the right thing to do for the world, how does that translate into rewards for us as practitioners? Financial rewards, we care about that. What does it mean for our branding, our reputation, our profitability, our cash flow, our capital value, our wealth? What is it specifically that accountants are doing that taps into all of that stuff? The how. What are the excuses that some accountants, pathetic I know, but some accountants hide behind so that they don't have to do it as well? And then we'll end with an action plan, a specific action plan, so that you can capitalize on this. One, to make the world a better place, yes, for sure, but two, to make your practice, your bank account, your personal future a better place too. So let's start by looking at the impact. Now what amazed me is that no one has ever before researched and looked at the impact that accountants are having across the world on their clients and communities. So remember, there are just 57 firms, 62 stories in the book, 62 case studies. But across those 57 firms, those 62 stories, these are just some of the headlines. Collectively, 19 businesses had been saved from extinction. 4 new businesses have been launched, one of which grew to 3 million quid in 24 months. 62 jobs, 62 families had had their employment status enhanced or saved. Sales have been increased by up to 1.8 million quid, all because of the accountant. Profit had been increased 142%, 273%, £700,000. In one case, massive losses have been turned into massive profits. Cash flow transformed from huge borrowings which were unfundable into positive cash balances. Raising the money to take the business forward, lifting a client out of special banking measures, a pay rise for the first time in 5 years. One client got, all because their accountants used their skills with numbers in a better way. And there are 57 of these stories. These are a snapshot of some of the numbers that we'll relate to. But actually what's really interesting, what for me was even more interesting, was not the we probably could have guessed that accountants were saving businesses and helping businesses grow and improving cash flow and wealth and so on. We could probably have guessed that, although there was no research on it before the book. But what we almost certainly couldn't have guessed was the emotional impact. In each and every one of the stories, we asked the clients, or we asked the people touched, how did it feel before your accountant helped you, and how did it feel afterwards? And this is I've just taken a screenshot from the book. This first column here are some of the common words that clients feel before an accountant gets involved. Tired, burnt out, stressed, vulnerable, frustrated, disillusioned, nervous, worried, anxious, confused, and so on and so forth. And then look at the words that they use to describe the emotional journey, the emotional transformation. When we stepped in, and we'll see how in a minute, but when we stepped in as new accountants to make more of a difference than ever before, good news is it's just using our core skills with numbers. All of that stuff gets turned into this stuff over here. They're positive, they're upbeat, they're focused, they're optimistic, they're grateful, they're excited. A weight has been lifted, they're able to dream big again. This is what businesses say we are doing to their lives. Does this not inspire you as much as it inspires me? The transformation at the power at our fingertips is extraordinary. And yet, and we certainly don't in our marketing and our sales messages when we communicate with clients and prospects talk about this transformation, but that's what they really care about. Actually, the money in my bank account's one thing, but the feeling in my heart is another thing altogether. If I feel one of these things because of my accountant, I am sticking with that accountant. I'm going to tell other people about that accountant. I'm going to pay him. I'm going to pay him whatever he asks. Whereas if I feel this kind of way and my accountant does nothing about it, I'm looking for another accountant. Let me just drill down and make some of these stories a little bit more real and personal. So Shaz runs a practice in Peterborough. This is not what, so Shaz is the practitioner, Shaz Nawaz. His client, who came to England about 15 years ago not speaking English, set up a cash and carry business. His client was working stupidly, 80 hours a week, was absolutely exhausted, money was tight, it was really challenging. And yet the story in the book is about how Shaz, as a great accountant, used his skills with numbers to bring that business round into a position where the business owner, Abdul, said, before I felt like I'd failed my family, and now I have the time and the money and energy to support them properly. Not surprising, because he's only working 10 hours a week. And it's a cash and carry business. This is usually quite labor intensive, but he's got his business under control. Put in place the right systems, the right technology, the right controls, backed up with the right accountant. Do you think that client who's gone on that journey with Shaz's help will stand up on a stage in front of 300 accountants and tell that story? Yes, that's what happened. Will he go around and tell everybody else what a great accountant Shaz is? Yes. How will Shaz feel? Flipping fantastic. And that's Peterborough. This is Phil Ellaby. Phil Ellaby runs a practice in just outside Leeds. Phil's client was a painter and decorator, Gavin. Actually, two partners running a painter and decorator. Gav is the one I know. Gav and his wife wanted to adopt a child, but they lived in a small house, and as adoption currently works, if your house isn't deemed suitable, you can't adopt. Even though every other family in the street's got kids, but that's natural pregnancies, they couldn't adopt. So the first thing that Phil was able to do was help improve the finances of the business so much they could move into a different house. Now they were eligible to adopt. So they go a long way down the line of adopting baby George. Now, I've not adopted a child, but what happens, I'm told, is that you really get to know the child before it's actually a done deal. They want to make sure that there's a fit, that it's going to work for everybody. So Gav and his wife had really got to love baby George, and then something hit the fan because a disgruntled former employee of the painter and decorators tried to blackmail them. Basically said there's been some financial irregularities, and unless you pay us a lot of money, we are going to go to the adoption agency and you're going to lose baby George. Now, there hadn't been any financial irregularities, so Phil was able to step in again, disprove the allegations. The guy was prosecuted and they got baby George. That family was intact because an accountant used his skills with numbers. All of that was possible because an accountant got involved. This is Alan Woods. Alan Woods picked up a client. In fact, this is a lady, Jean, was the wife of a business owner. The business owner had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. As a result, his accounting records had got into a mess and he wasn't well enough to sort it out. He couldn't even remember who his accountant was. So his wife, Jean, put a post on one of these websites saying, can somebody help me? Because my insurance company is not paying out. You know, we've got various life insurances and health insurances, but without appropriate records, we can't prove the level of income, and therefore they're just paying tiddly squat. So Alan got involved initially without charging anything, ended up pulling the accounting records together, negotiating with the insurance companies, well in excess, £250,000 extra lump sum, plus about another 10 or 12 grand a year extra annual income under the policies. And so as a result, Jean was able to give up her job and support her husband in those times that were the most challenging that they've ever had. The difference that we can make by being accountants using our skills with numbers. David Miller, his client, Chris Holt, initially used to hire out projectors. His business was called Project It. Projectors became digital projectors for projecting PowerPoint presentations on screens, but that kind of technology became so cheap, a few £100s, that there was nothing left in the hire business. So Dave worked with them to completely transform their business into an event management business, which they then called Simply Better. So successfully that Chris Holt, who runs the business, is now able to spend 3 months a year living in his dream home. He bought some land on a Greek island and he built his villa overlooking the sea. And he's able to spend 3 months a year there because the business largely runs without him, and it's now a several £1 million. He could afford that, and he could afford to take the time out. In fact, don't take my word for it. This is Chris Holt. In the book, Chris said this: I'm no longer stressed. Why would I be? I have financial security for me and my family, a successful business, happy customers, and my dream home in the sun. That's not the impressive bit. Look at where the quote continued. In fact, I never thought I would hear myself say this, but the more I think about it, the more I realize it's true. My accountant has changed my life. Isn't that profound? His accountant had changed his life. That's what we can do. That is almost certainly what you are doing, actually. We just need to do more of it. And then we also looked at, as part of the research, not just the impact on businesses, the financial impact on profit and so on. We also looked at the emotional impact. We saw that table of the before and after feelings, but we looked at the social impact. Bear in mind, there are only 57 firms, 62 stories in the book. Between those 57 firms, 62 stories, over £1 million had been raised for good causes, for charitable causes. Almost 250,000 pro bono hours. 3 hours given to good causes to help. The two of the accounting firms had founded charities. One of those charities had already saved 550 young girls in Cambodia from getting involved in sex trafficking and given them an alternative future. That's an Australian practice. And 9,653,329 people's lives have been made a little bit better. That's a quantifiable number that you can see on b1g1.com, which is the world's best giving platform. If you come across Paul Dunn of the Bootcamp fame, Paul used to work with accountants, well he still does in a sense, but he's now created a platform so that any business connect with causes that resonate with them. And it doesn't measure how much money you've given, it measures the impact, it measures the number of people's lives you've touched. So we can tell that between those firms, they have touched 9.6 million people's lives, including, saving 500 from sex trafficking and so on. To me, that's profound. To me, that impact, which we have never identified as a profession before, opens up a whole host of new possibilities. Possibility to stand proud, yes, for sure, to do more of this stuff and to benefit as a consequence. The world clearly benefits, our clients clearly benefit, emotionally, financially, socially. But we also looked at, well, what were the rewards that the accountants doing this stuff were getting? What's the payback? There shouldn't need to be one. Actually, doing this stuff in itself is enough. But actually, look. One of the clients in the book, for example, said, I now spend 3 times as much as I used to with my accountants, and it's worth every penny. Imagine your clients being willing to spend 3 times as much with you because you did stuff which had that kind of emotional, financial impact on them. Just imagine. Imagine how it would feel when you get up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror. Imagine how it would feel when you click into your bank account and see the numbers. Imagine how it would feel when a client says, thank you, you've changed my life. The accountants we talked to said things like this, we can now charge higher fees than ever before. One of them said, look, this actually earned us our single highest fee. And it gives us a great reputation and attracts us loads of great clients. Because it would do, wouldn't it? There's a choice, isn't there, between being like everybody else and being inspiring. And the impact, the rewards, are profound. What about the emotional impact on your team, for example? Well, one of the practitioners told us it's so fulfilling knowing that we're part of something that's making a real difference. One of the team members that we interviewed said this, to have a purpose beyond our daily working life is both humbling and satisfying. To have that purpose together as a team is unifying and empowering. Imagine a team that felt unified, inspired and empowered. What would they do for you? More is the answer. Better. And in fact, one young intern said this, today's best graduates want to join businesses where they know they'll make a difference doing worthwhile work. That phrase, worthwhile work, crops up all over the place in this next generation's set of goals. And that's why I'm so excited about building my career at a business that thinks that way too. Your financial issues, your recruitment issues, your customer service issues, your reputational issues, your price issues, go away when you do this stuff. All the evidence says. The question is, okay, then what is this stuff? So the case for doing this is overwhelming. The evidence is overwhelming, but what is it that they're actually doing? And you might be thinking, well, it must be that they're pulling on Superman's red underpants and going out and being business advisors or whatever. And there is a little bit of that going on. But the thing that hit me between the eyes most in this research was that it is not about being Superman. And in truth, back 10, 15 years ago when I was delivering courses, I was effectively saying to the accounting profession, pull on Superman's red underpants and go out and be a business development consultant. And what we've discovered since, and this research it screams through, is you don't need to do that. The great news is you do not have to be Superman. If you want to be Superman, that's great. But you don't have to, because this quote kind of sums it up. And this is from one of the firms in the book. The point is that we accountants can, what we see as fairly ordinary advice and support, not Superman's advice, fairly ordinary advice and support makes an extraordinary difference. The profession has so much more power to do good than it gives itself credit for. And that power is at our fingertips. And thanks to new technology such as cloud accounting and everything that goes with it, our power to make a difference is getting greater by the day. And so many of the stories in the book were powered by new technology. The difference we were able to make without being Superman, because we use some of this stuff out here, are extraordinary. So what are the specific, so we then looked at the services that the firms of accountants were delivering. What is the actual stuff they were doing that was making a difference? And we could group them together into 4 types, which conveniently add up to cash, which is quite nice. There's the core stuff, the things you absolutely must be doing, and the really good news is there's no Superman's red underpants in there whatsoever. There's the advanced stuff, the stuff you should be factoring into your plans if you haven't already, because it's coming along and you need to master it pretty soon. There's the specialist stuff, which in truth you never need to master, you just need to draw in experts from time to time when occasionally you need some advice on whatever the specific, really unusual nuance is. And then there's the humanitarian stuff, the stuff which isn't actually necessary from a commercial point of view, but actually makes being a business person joyful, because you can touch 9 million people's lives. So it adds up to cash. The core stuff are the things that was making the most difference to the most number of the stories in the book, the most number of clients. And the really good news is you can do every single one of these things already. You just need to do more of them. You need to believe in them more, and you need to put more energy and focus behind them. So what were they? They're all the stuff you would expect. I came at this expecting to see Superman's red underpants being worn left, right, and center by heroic accountants, and that is not what we found. What we found are accountants doing the core things, putting in place proper accounting systems so the client has up-to-date information, reliable and accurate, wrapping around those controls so that, that you're minimizing the risk of it getting messed up, putting in bookkeeping support so that actually the data entry was correct in the first place, giving them the right kind of management information so the leaders have got at their fingertips what they need to make better decisions, supporting them in that decision making so they can understand and interpret and analyze and use the data rather than just being a sea of data. And maybe supporting them by going one step up and playing a kind of virtual FD role. If they don't have an FD in the business, very often the firms are playing that, for which they were getting paid a lot of money, by the way. It's one of the keys to earning 3 times as much per client is be their virtual FD. Doing what? Focusing on this stuff. No Superman's red underpants, focusing on the skills we already have, supercharged by the technology that's out here. Acting as a sounding board for issues and challenges, so they get a second opinion when they need it. Attending their key board meetings and focusing them in on the key issues. Getting paid £500 to £1,000 a month or a quarter to go to their meetings. And them thinking you're fantastic and you're thinking this is nice work. And then moving on from that, helping them create business plans so they can move forward in a carefully thought through way. Forecast, integrated cash flow, P&L account, balance sheet forecasting to make sure that those business plans stack up. Cash flow management to make sure they don't run out of the cash along the way. And then from time to time when they need to raise extra funding, we're helping them tap into whether it's invoice discount. If you haven't seen Sataga, by the way, awesome piece of kit, phenomenal. And Go Carverson directly, also awesome. And then expanding that into cost and profitability analysis so they make better decisions around pricing and product marketing and so on. And then ultimately serving them in these core areas of helping them get their businesses ready for sale or maybe buying stuff along the way and ultimately helping them get out. And of course along the way also all the tax plan. Most of the impact in most of the cases was coming from those core services. And once we realize that and we start telling the story to our clients more effectively of the difference those things can make, you don't have to be Superman, you don't have to have red underpants, you just need to be a great accountant. You are a great accountant put on steroids by technology. Because, this slide sums it up, because what we're really looking at here is a world in which, with our help, the client gets better data. That better data, wrapping around it, that's our skills, we do better analysis on it so the data makes sense so that they make better decisions. And as a result of them making better decisions, they get better results, and consequently they build better businesses, create better life for themselves and everybody touched by those businesses, and collectively we create a better world. There's just a natural chain of causality there, isn't there? That's why accountants are making the differences in our hands, but rooted in this stuff, rooted in what makes this profession great. I know some people who put that on the back of their business card, say this is what we do. We help you get better data so you can with better analysis so you make better decisions, get better results, build a better life, and together we create a better world. The back of their business card tells that, so that's inspiring. to me. Okay, that's the font doesn't work there, so you can't see it properly. So we've looked at core services. What about the advanced services? That's the next level up. These are the things you need to factor into your plans. That's what it would say down here, you just can't read it. If you haven't factored them in already, these are coming along pretty soon. In fact, in truth, 5 years ago, cloud accounting would not have been even a core service, but today it absolutely is, I think. But the advanced services, the things which you haven't, or if you haven't already got them factored into your plans, you need to be factoring in. Well, things like helping our clients properly set and understand, articulate their goals, because until they know where they're trying to get to, how can we possibly help them make the right decisions around their business and beyond? It might not be historically what accountants have done, but how can we help a client unless we know what the objective is? And that then leads into strategic planning, not just business plans, but actually more strategic view of planning. For example, Oliver is doing a fantastic workshop out on the exact thing here around, I'll give you another reminder of it in a minute, but a fantastic workshop which will give you some great skills to help your clients in these kind of areas, completely free. Business coaching and mentoring, so that actually there's a little bit of Superman's red underpants, but not where you know all the answers, but where you bring questions to the table, and together you look for answers together. That's what coaching and mentoring is. It's easier for us to do. Workflow and process, so many of the stories, by the way, the transformation in clients' lives, the clarity and the simplicity they brought where there was previously chaos, had come because of business process automation. You know, whether from as simple as using Receipt Bank to automate the process of capturing purchase invoices, through to a whole workflow automation. If you can link things together, all this phenomenal technology out here, if you can choose the right elements and get them talking to each other, large swathes of what used to take people hours and hours and hours happen brilliantly, automatically, at no cost. So an enormous number of the stories were coming from business process automation using this kind of stuff. And obviously then beginning to be a bit more Superman's red underpants, growth and profit improvement advice. This one isn't Superman's red underpants, KPIs, key performance indicators, helping our clients understand what really needs to be measured and then measuring it. And that's not just what's in a P&L account and balance sheet. Some of that stuff matters, but plenty of other things really matter too. Once we start offering that kind of service, we set ourselves apart massively, and technology makes it easier than ever before. And grant finding, so that we can help them tap into, there's billions of pounds of unclaimed grants out there for almost every kind of expenditure. And my personal favourite is expanding it out, not just to looking at our clients as business owners, but looking at them as family people, their family finances. Because actually what matters to me much more than the success of my business is the success of my family unit financially. You know, am I going to be able to retire? Am I going to be able to retire at the point in time that I choose to? Are my investments going to yield at the right kind of rate? You know, does it all stack up? Do I have control? Do I have choices? What are the implications around inheritance tax and so on? All that kind of stuff. In fact, the single best thing you can do around that area is add into your core account service a personal balance sheet. So just help your clients create a personal balance sheet, because all of those questions flow from that personal balance sheet. Is the net worth enough to fund the life they want to in their retirement? And if not, what are we going to do about it? That leads into business improvement advice, wealth improvement advice, tax planning advice from family finances as a focus. And then business for good. So we've looked at core services, the things you must do, the advanced services, the things you factor in. The specialist services are the occasional bit of really obscure tax planning. You don't need to have those in-house, most of us, because you can just bring in an expert as and when you need those. So the specialist stuff can stay specialist. The H in cash, the humanitarian services, as I say, the best way that I know of delivering humanitarian services is something like B1G1, the Business for Good movement. That's the platform that Paul Dunn created that has touched 9.6 million people's lives. But it never measures that in terms of how much money you've given. It measures it in terms of how many people's lives you've touched, which is just a joyful way of doing it. Oliver is running a workshop out there on this brilliant book, Business Model Generation. It's completely free, and he'll talk you through the process. It's one of the most influential books of the last 10 years, I think. And if you want some skills and insights where to help clients understand strategy and moving their business forward, you know, tap into Oliver's, it's the other side of the exact stand. He's got a big whiteboard thing. He's using digital technology to write on the screen. You can buy the book, or you can tap into Oliver's expertise out there. It's a great way of adding some additional skills and knowledge so that you can be more impactful. And as my contribution to the mix, you'll have seen that on the seats there was a little flyer. May I just brandish it? This has got a whole load of things which you can buy on Amazon if you want, but why would you? Or why would you pay 590 quid when I'll send them to you for free if you would like me to? Including the fourth one on there, this one is 30 or so cloud tools, many of which are completely free, many of which are exhibiting here. But I did a research study back end of last year. 683 firms of accountants told me the tools that they were finding really, really useful. So we've summarized those for you. Many of them are available free. So these are all recommended by other accountants. I'm not talking about accounting technology, you know, Exact is brilliant at that. You'll have your own favorites as well. Other stuff around accounting technology. The business case, the social case, the personal case for doing this stuff, the evidence, the impact, the rewards are overwhelming, clearly. But there's a real risk that we get trapped behind excuses. In fact, we identified 15 excuses in the book. And the reason for identifying the excuses is so that if you're going to make these excuses, you have to have a blooming good reason. Because each and every one of them is shown to be pathetic. So just give you a flavour of those excuses. Yeah, Steve, but it won't work for a firm of our size. Remember, 71% of the firms in the book have 1 or 2 partners and less than 10 people. Your size, probably. And if you're bigger than that, that's fine, you're in the other 29%. Our clients are different. You notice the pathetic intonation in my voice. Yeah, our clients are different, Steve. What? They're different in the fact they don't want to make things better for their employees, their families. They want to improve their bank account. They want to make more of a difference, leave more of a legacy, have an easier life, create a better world. You actually got the miserable gits that don't want any of that stuff. Because if you have, that's telling you something, isn't it? We attract miserable gits. What is it about us then? Well, maybe you're not very inspiring at the moment. So that's rubbish as well. Or we don't have the right kind of clients. Ditto. If you're brilliant at getting in the wrong kind of clients, what's that telling you? You have to do something different. But there are other more important things we need to do first. And when I drill down into that one, it's things like, yeah, but Steve, you don't understand. The computer cabling's going in. We won't do this now. We'll do it sometime in the future because we've got something, you know, it's a new fleet or it's a new bit of software. And the point is, there's never a perfect time. There's always other stuff in your inbox. That is inevitably the case. It's just a pathetic excuse. Is there anything more important than building a practice that touches people's lives in a positive way, that makes your life much, 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 much better than it ever has been before? Is there anything more important in your in trade currently? No. It's just a pathetic excuse. Or the other excuses, remember there are 15, I've only got 8 of them up here. Yeah, but Steve, it's too difficult. It's not too, the core stuff is stuff we can do and the technology just supercharges it. It's not, if you're an accountant, this is not too difficult. If it is too difficult for you, go and sell the big issue then. You need a career change because every accountant can do this stuff. I'm not good enough. That's just a self-esteem issue. You absolutely are. In fact, really one of the things that comes through most clearly in the research to me is that as a profession, we do not have the self-esteem, the self-confidence that we should do. And my hope is that by publishing these stories about the impact that accountants are having, we finally build the self-esteem to stand tall. And instead of at dinner parties when someone says, what do you do? I'm an accountant, and hope they didn't notice. Actually, I'm an accountant. And we make the world a better place. And then they'll say, how? And you can use that diagram, by helping our clients get better data, so they make better analysis, so they make better decisions and get better results, so that we help them build better businesses, so they can enjoy better lives, and together we build a better world. That's what we do. Imagine if that was your story in the marketplace. How would that feel? And how would that work? So you can do this, you are good enough, as are your team. And it's pathetic to hide behind the excuse, yeah, they're not good enough. They are, and in the one person in 100, your team might not be good enough. There is a solution to that then, isn't there? Get a different team. But for 99 in 100, your team are already good enough. They just need to be they need to understand the impact that they can make. They need to understand your vision, your inspiring vision. That's what leaders do, they inspire their team. If your team isn't inspired, that's your fault. Because that's the job of a leader. And my hope, there's one business that now is taking the book and reading a chapter together every morning. There's 57 chapters, so they've got like 2 months worth. They're reading a chapter every morning, and then as a team discussing the implications and using that to inspire everybody to a higher level. But we don't have the skills, the tools and the knowledge. Well, might there be a solution to that then? I guess the solution, if you don't have something that you need, is to get it. It's not difficult to get the skills, tools and knowledge. You're surrounded by them here. I think Sian put it perfectly. It's a quote from the book from Sian Kelly. She runs Inform Accounting. The profession is at a crossroads. Some accountants are helping customers integrate and automate things, improving accuracy and reliability, saving time and reducing costs, all that core stuff. And others seem to be happy to allow their clients to limp along with legacy technology and systems that are slow, inefficient and error prone. The first group are enabling economic progress, growth and prosperity, and not only are we proud to be part of it, but for the good of the profession, we urge other accountants to join it too. That's inspiring. She gets it. Her practice is very, very successful. You can do all of this stuff. The only question is whether you will. That's a choice. That's your choice. And the quality of your world, the quality of our world, is directly driven by the quality of choices that you make. It always has been, and it always will be. And Newtonian physics, cause of law and effect. You do something and it causes a reaction. You make the right choice, you get great outcomes. You make the wrong choice, the opposite. So what about your action plan in the last couple of minutes? What are the things that you need to choose to do? What's my suggestions? Right at the top of the list. Believe in yourself, believe in this profession, believe in the power that we have as accountants to use our skills with numbers to change people's lives, by changing their businesses, by changing their decisions, by giving them the information they need to make better decisions, better choices. Because until we crack that first one, until we have the self-esteem, we are not going to harness this technology or throw ourselves into anything with sufficient vigor and enthusiasm to really make it happen. And if you don't believe in yourself, I mean, just go and, life's too damn short, go and get if you don't believe in the power of this profession, then go and join another one. Life's too short. Number two then, having then convinced yourself that you can, number two is you then actually have to start doing it. Focus your practice on the things that are going to make a difference. And if you need to, get the skills and tools so that you can do that. This is just this is logical. Start with a decision, a belief and a set of decisions, then focus your practice on doing the things that matter. Using your skills with numbers in all those core ways we've seen, factoring into your plans the advanced stuff, leaving the specialist stuff for someone else as and when you need it, and if you really want to take it to the very peak level, then factoring in that humanitarian stuff as well. Because wouldn't it be great to also be impacting 9.3 million lives? So start focusing your practice on doing stuff that matters. And then step three, as you do stuff that matters and it makes a difference to people, start collecting the stories. In the same way that my book is full of 62 stories of how other accountants have made a difference, you collect your stories. Because those stories become the marketing message for you. You know, if you stand up in the marketplace and say, look at, most advertising, most marketing is a supplier basically as a strutting peacock, sticking their chest out, look at me, aren't I great? And people get very, very bored of that kind of message. Whereas if the message was a much more humble, look at the difference these people have experienced, look at the emotional journey, the financial journey, look at the way it's touched their lives, their ability to have cope with Alzheimer's in the family and adopt a child and create jobs and bring their dream home. If you have your armory of those stories, not only will you be telling those stories, because you'll share those, so you collect those stories, step three, and then you start sharing those stories. You put them on your website, you talk about them when you meet people, you have them turned into fact sheets, your team start talking about them, your customers start talking about them, word gets out into the marketplace, word of mouth, that you are the guys that make a difference. That's the single most powerful way of marketing your firm, is getting those stories of the difference you are making out into the marketplace. And because you will be making a profound difference, you can then price accordingly. Now, you can price at 3 times what you used to, perhaps, because now you're worth it. Because now they want to pay you, because now they're saying thank you rather than it's like extracting teeth. Because you'll focus your practice on stuff that matters. You're collecting the stories, you're sharing the stories, they understand the value, they understand the impact, they think you're great. You become Superman without doing any Superman stuff. That to me is the 5-step action plan. It's not difficult, it just requires a decision. And the quality of your decisions will determine the quality of everything you experience from this point onward. The clients you attract, the profits you earn, the number of hours you have to work in a week, the amount of thanks you get from your clients, the feeling you get when you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, the point in time in the future that you're able to retire, all of those things will be driven by the quality of choices that you make. Please, please, please do not buy my book on Amazon. I mean, it's on Amazon, but please don't. If you do want to buy the book, just go to stevepipe.com. It's cheaper and you get a whole load of other free stuff. So if you go to Amazon, you'll pay more and you don't get anything extra. But don't buy it from Amazon. In fact, if you don't want to, don't buy it at all, because you can get loads of great stuff on today's little form. It just remains for me to say thank you to you as representatives of this great. I'm ferociously proud to be an FCA. I'm married to an accountant as well. Carol's going to be collecting in your forms. She's got the black and white stripy jumper on there. She can collect those in a second. I'm ferociously proud to be an accountant. I'm ferociously proud to have had some time to share with you what I found out, that the difference that this profession can make. And I'm hoping that in a year or two's time, or in 6 months' time, you're sharing with me stories that I can feature in the next edition of the book. Give yourselves a huge round of applause. So if you want any of the freebies, you need to fill in the form and give them to Carol or leave them on your seat. Fantastic. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I missed about 15 minutes conversation. So is it possible if I can...
It's a great pleasure.
If I can